diet. None is about literature. Nowadays, people drink too much. It mistreats the body. The actor can't do that. He has to correct himself. The business of editing yourself is a life task. It's not about auditions or being in rehearsal. I, for instance, am very strict about what I eat, and I'm equally strict about what I read. You couldn't make me even pick up a book I don't want to read, any more than I'd drink a bottle of vodka for breakfast because somebody put it out on the table. How many people read without aim? How many people read simply for amusement? You're too old for that. Reading is not for play. It is to gain knowledge. You don't ride a tricycle anymore, do you? It's time for Dante, not Mother Goose. My late husband, Mitchell Wilson, was a scientist. He and Enrico Fermi worked together on the development of the atomic bomb. My husband used to say that in our time, 10 years had been added to life. We didn't add the 10 years to maturity. We added them to adolescence. We're still kids when we're 28. I'm not telling you to give up innocence. We're here to train your innocence, to preserve it, to polish it. But don't confuse innocence with adolescence. I want you to be innocent, wise, and 95. There is one rule to be learned. Life is not you. Life is outside you. If it is outside, you must go toward it. You must go toward a person, and if he or she backs off, it's their fault. The essential thing to know is that life is in front of you. Go toward it. You may have been corrupted into thinking that you are important. If so, you are a lost creature waiting for the world to come to you. An actress's whole life can be ruined if she expects life to come to her. Tell yourself that the world is outside, that it's not to be hidden from you, that you are going to thrust yourself forward and be relaxed in the world. You have chosen a field where you're going to be hurt to the blood, but to retreat from the pain is death. Let's talk about you and me now, about how we are going to work together. This is not a course for compliments. If you want to know how great you are, stay home and audition for your mother. I don't compliment myself, and I'm certainly not going to compliment you. You can be afraid of me, afraid of the stage, of the audience. Fear can upstage your career. You can play supporting roles to fear your whole life. Is that what you want? You can say, I'm afraid of her, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm afraid of authority. Well, you have to tell yourself you're no longer a child and there is no authority. You must not retreat into the selfish, crippled idea that she scares me, or the director scares me, or the critic petrifies me. You have to say, Miss Adler, I want to be afraid of you, but I won't be, because it's stupid. You're not holding a gun. At times I will be angry with you. You mustn't take it personally. It's not about you personally, and it's not about me personally. It's about the work. I want you to care as much as I do. I have heard it said that I terrify my students. I know what they mean, but I don't find that accurate. It's true that you may become terrified in this class, but I won't be terrifying you. You'll be terrifying yourselves. You may become terrified by how much you have to learn, and that sort of terror is a blessing when you're 19 or 26, but postpone that terror until you're 36. Now that's more than a terror, it's a tragedy. I want you to read The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Gibran was born in Lebanon in 1883, the grandson of a Maronite priest. When he was 12, his family moved to Boston, but after a few years he asked to be sent back to Lebanon, where he studied at a Maronite school in Beirut. After his studies, he traveled all over the Middle East. He returned to the West and spent a few years in Paris, where he studied under the great sculptor Rodin, who predicted a great future for him as an artist. Until his death in 1931, he produced many works combining the wisdom of both East and West, the most famous of which is The Prophet. I want you to take one of his ideas, paraphrase it, write it out in your own words, Then come back here, stand on the stage, and give it to us. This means you are dealing with a text, dealing with ideas. There is no such thing as a text without ideas. You will read it, and it will begin to make sense to you. The reason I give you Gibran is that he is able to lift you to where he wants to go. Your mind is inclined toward the pedestrian, but he wants to lift you to his level. I don't want to baby you, but I have to because most of you have not had an education that has prepared you for the theater. Ideas are difficult because they are on paper. But if you read them several times slowly, the ideas will become yours, and you will be able to give them back. Nothing is stronger than the idea. Not Stella, not anybody, not even God. The whole thing about acting is to give. The actor must, above everything, be generous. He doesn't hoard his riches. He has to say, I want you to hear this essay. It has wonderful ideas. But before you can be giving and magnanimous, you must have something to give. Ideas don't come from your legs. They don't come from your voice. They come from your mind. The theater is built on developing your mind. It's an education for your mind. You can dance without a mind. You certainly can sing without a mind, but you can't act. Dancing eliminates thinking. You have to understand, I'm not a dancing teacher. You will have to concentrate your body in order to use your mind. Miss Adler isn't here to help you look or sound good. This is not Dale Carnegie. I want you to start making a habit of looking at things and writing down what you liked, what you disliked. I want you to do this every day. We can start right here. I like the color of the dress Miss Adler is wearing. I don't like her earrings. They're a little vulgar. I like that beautiful leather briefcase the boy in the first row has. After a few weeks, I want you to start adding why you liked what you liked. You'll find that you may like broken pavements, maybe because you think they're charming. Or you'll find you don't like broken pavements because you like things to have their own definable shape. You'll begin to discover things about your perceptions and your tastes. I want you to bring in 10 white objects, 10 blue objects, and 10 red objects you will have seen this week. The red, for example, on that girl's sweater, or the blue on the book that boy has put under his chair. There's one thing that exceeds all others, the eyes of the actor. If he sees specifically. He doesn't generalize. He must be careful. He must learn to see the difference between different reds. The red of a racing car, the red of a hibiscus, and the red of blood. There are 3 different reds. They mean 3 different things. The ability to see specifically has to do with the ability to react differently. You don't respond to one red the way you do to another. You can respond passively to a red fire hydrant whose paint has faded and is streaked with off-white. You don't respond passively to the gleaming red of a fire engine whizzing by. Critical seeing, self-awareness, discipline, and self-control. These are the demands we'll be working on. But none of these, once mastered, will matter at all without the energy. You must develop the energy necessary for the stage. You have to work for it. God doesn't just give it to you. The world is in front of you. You have to take it in. You have to see things you never saw before. Then you have to give it back to the world. Everything you do as an actor is important. You have to feel that what you can give as an actor is important. You have to feel a great sense of responsibility about what you do. On a practical level, what this means is that you have to promise not to miss work, not to miss class. We have made a commitment to each other. We have to feel that there is a moral quality to that commitment. You have to understand that there was a time when a handshake reflected a moral commitment, that men would rather die than break a promise or betray what was implied in a handshake. The actor has the ability to convey moral force, to help people understand that even a handshake has a moral significance. There is no limit to what an actor can make an audience feel and understand. Writers are important, so are scenic artists and directors, but you have let them take over. We actors have to reclaim first place. That's what this class is really about. Class 2. The world of the stage isn't your world. The first thing you must learn to become an actor is what the theater can mean and how much it can mean. I'm not referring to the debased idea of the theater as it exists today, but the theater as it has existed for over 2,000 years. A civilization isn't defined by how much money somebody made or how many BMWs people have in their garages. If you visit the Metropolitan Museum of Art, you won't see exhibits of people's bank accounts. The currency of civilization is art. That's what's preserved in our museums and libraries. You have the possibility of carrying these riches of 2 millennia inside you, but you cannot transmit what you have not received. So you must study theater the way a priest or rabbi studies scripture. You have the privilege of forging our link from that history to the future. If the theater today is debased, it's because we are debased. If we look around at America, we see a place where people steal for a nickel, where people kill without a deep sense of guilt, where people have no respect for religion, where people dress carelessly, where people don't respect their bodies. Inevitably, the theater must reflect all that. The word theater comes from the Greek. It means the seeing place. It is the place people come to see the truth about life and the social situation. The theater is the spiritual and social X-ray of its time. The stage can no more lie about who we are than an X-ray can. The theater was created to tell people the truth about life and the social situation. 2,000 years ago, Sophocles wrote a play about a man named Oedipus, who killed a man and slept with his widow. The man he killed was his father, and the woman he slept with was his mother. He had been warned that he would do this, but he thought he could outwit his destiny. Oedipus did something in the social situation that was dangerous, something that threatened the entire social life of his community. You still have some sense that certain behavior can be threatening to all our welfare. That was what Sophocles was writing about. He wanted to teach morality and justice. We don't have to go back 2,000 years to understand this. In 1947, Arthur Miller wrote a play called All My Sons, in which a father shortchanges the government in the airplane parts his factory manufactures. The result is that he may have been responsible for the death of his own son. His decision to place profits above responsibility means that all of us, every part of us, is threatened. Arthur Miller wants to teach morality and justice. So it was, so it is, and so it shall ever be. These are the subjects of theater. If they aren't your subjects, it's not too late to arrange for a tuition refund. You're here to prepare yourselves to ask big questions, to help great writers pose great questions. That's what writers have done from Sophocles onward. Part of your preparation must be to understand the language of the past and to make it compelling for audiences in the present. You must be aware that even a subject of profound importance can be trivialized and degraded if you haven't the energy and interest to match it. We all know people who can be asking big questions, but they might as well be asking you for a cigarette. If you're one of them now, you won't be for long. Listen to yourselves. Listen to your neighbors. Are you hearing substance, or have you become complacent with the dreary doggerel of everyday gossip? Here within these walls, you will learn to raise any subject you discuss to its highest point. One of the reasons I asked you to prepare something from Gibran is that his writing has a biblical quality. It has size. Most of you, when you talk, are talking air. What you talk about rarely has any more interest or energy than if you were saying, "I need a cigarette." You have to understand that the theater is epic. it's large, the way the law is large, the way family life is large, the way growing trees are large. You must nurture them. You can't neglect them. Many years ago, I went to Columbia University. I was interested in architecture. Specifically, I was interested in how Carolingian architecture was transformed into Gothic. I was that kind of crazy student. I was already playing on Broadway, but I schlepped myself up to Columbia to study Carolingian architecture. The teacher was Meyer Shapiro, one of the greatest critics of art and architecture. He allowed me into his classroom. I didn't think about paying because I'm very abstract. Nobody asked me for money, so I just walked in at 10 in the morning. You're not so lucky in that respect. We always remembered to ask you to pay. The other students in the class were graduate students. Do you know that the graduate students and myself didn't understand one word he said that first morning? Why? Because he couldn't get from Carolingian to Gothic without starting in the 6th century BC. From there he went into Byzantine, and eventually we got to the Carolingian. And of course everybody in the class said, "Yes, Mr. Shapiro, of course, Mr. Shapiro." Then we read and studied all night at home in order to catch up with his world. Sometimes I think my students feel the same. They're respectful. They say, "Yes, Miss Adler, of course, Miss Adler." But what they're thinking is, "Get the hell on with this." Well, you can't get the hell on with this. Either you get Meyer Shapiro doing Carolingian architecture, or you will get the show. And if I give you the show, I'm cheating you. If it's the show you don't want me. I'm not supposed to be the entertainment. You are. In Shakespeare's day, thousands of people preferred bear baiting to Hamlet. If you're here to see bear baiting, you've come to the wrong arena. Try the World Wrestling Federation. They're actors and bears both. I'm giving you all of history in order to jumpstart your instrument, which is run down, to awaken your soul, which is in a state of catatonia. Be honest. Do you read? If you don't read Dante or Keats or Dostoevsky, you don't. You don't discuss ideas. You don't know how to reach each other. You're skimming life. Acting wasn't born today. It's a tradition of 2,000 years. In England, to be considered great, you have to play Hamlet or King Lear. You don't have this tradition. You'll never be buried in Westminster Abbey. You're not going to be made a commander of the British Empire or a member of the House of Lords. But you'll never really be great unless you aim high. Death of a Salesman is as near as you will get to playing Hamlet. You have to be ready for Death of a Salesman. To play in the big plays, your acting range, your stretch, your being, your lifeline has to be big. You never are a great conductor unless you conduct the 3 Bs, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. You are never a great composer unless you write a symphony. You're never a great writer unless you write in the poetic style. When Time magazine came to ask me about Marlon Brando, who was at one time my student, they said, "Is he a great actor?" I said, "We'll never know. He has greatness in him, but there is no actor in the world who knows whether he is great unless he plays the great parts." We have to restore theater to its historical purpose, lift it to the level where it existed all over the world for thousands of years, to the point where we understand that what the playwright was saying was, these are the rules. These are the cosmic rules. That's what playwriting is about. It's not easy to get from where we are today back to the place we once were. The skepticism of everyday life and the loss of artistic ideals creates an environment of irreverence. It seems more difficult for the contemporary student to discipline himself than it did in previous generations. Students frequently come to me smashed, physically and emotionally. The relationship to life is completely deadened. Seemingly, they have no idea where they are or where they're going. But there is a basic need in human beings that makes them want to expand themselves. There is a spark that wants to grow. That spark has to be kept alive. With a clear and hard-working effort, you can grow. You can graduate from callousness and emptiness into aesthetic maturity. With proper training, you can stretch your talents immeasurably. That's why we have the technique. The first aspect we work on is seeing, creating images for ourselves that energize what we say. When you say something, see what you're talking about. Don't open your mouth until you do. That's why I want you to concentrate on seeing the differences between the different reds, the different blues, to see how you respond to them. An actor who has looked carefully at the red on the mailbox will never see it again without saying, "Ah, that's the red from my exercise." He will never look at the red of nail polish and confuse it with the red of the stoplight. Acting is not an abstract activity. The actor must make everything he deals with real. If I have a chair on stage with me, that chair must become the focus of my attention so that it's not just an abstract object, it's an object with which I have some relationship. Sometimes a chair can help you define a play. When we see the father in Edward Albee's The Death of Bessie Smith, we know almost everything we need to know about him because he's sitting on run-down wicker furniture on the porch. I must say, there is nothing that says more who you are than run-down wicker furniture. There is something about it that says, "What happened to you? You used to be white and now you're chipped." Albee's play is about a society that will allow a great artist to die just because she's black. The great blues singer Bessie Smith died because a white hospital in the South would not admit her. We never see Bessie Smith herself in the play, but Albee shows us a great deal about the culture that allowed her to die because of the color of her skin. The father, sitting on the wicker furniture, is a man full of hatred. He loathes his daughter. He loathes himself. He loathes black people. He loathes the mayor of the town, who will not see him. He represents the breakdown of the Southern order, but we can see it all in the run-down wicker furniture. As for the chair in my hand, I know the precise shade of brown it is. I know every nick in its back. I know where the paint has come off. I know where the springs are pushing through the upholstery. I know if the legs are wobbly or if the arms need to be fixed. I also know what the chair demands of me, whether it makes me sit up straight or whether it allows me to slouch. If I sit in a beach chair, how long does it take me to respond to the truth of where I am? You will hear me say very often what Stanislavski said, "Truth in art is truth in circumstances." And the first circumstance, the circumstance that governs everything is, where am I? If I don't understand the chair completely, I'll be forced to fake it. That's the worst thing an actor can do. We have to take the same attitude toward a dramatic text. We have to understand it totally. Have to know its every nick and eccentricity before we can feel comfortable with it. We have to understand what it demands of us. Otherwise, we can't communicate it, and we become fake. Is anything worse? The actor knows how easy it is to lie, to fake. What he must do is surround himself with things that are true. As long as he can focus on those, he won't be tempted to lie. The actor is always in a specific circumstance. When you stand on stage to give us the ideas of Gibran, ask yourself, where am I? There are several ways to answer this question. You can be realistic. You can say, I am in the Stella Adler Conservatory on West 56th Street, in a room with white walls, with a platform with windows at the back. There are lights coming down on the platform. Or you can be imaginative. I'm standing in a public square where people have come to hear me speak. If you're going to be imaginative, you have to be very specific. What kind of buildings surround the square? What part of the country are you in? What year? What time of year? What kind of people are listening to you? What are they wearing? What class are they? Is it an old square with historic buildings? Is it a park? If so, what kind of trees can you see? What kind of flowers? And so on, and so on, and so on. The more you concentrate on the circumstances that surround you, the more at ease you'll be. Circumstances make us see. To be specific, we have to see where we're standing. We cannot see what isn't there, and nothing will be there until you put it in. If the actor sees it, he can make his audience see it. That's the first rule of acting. There must be images. The better the actor, the more specifically he creates the circumstances. He always has a partner. Sometimes the partner is another actor on stage with whom he communicates. Sometimes the partner is the audience. When you stand on stage today to give us the ideas of Gibran, your partner will be the audience. Not just this audience of your fellow students who are your friends and who will make every effort to encourage you and smile as if they understand what you're talking about, whether they do or not. You must imagine the kind of audience you will have in a theater where no one knows you, where there will be little old ladies in the balcony who will have trouble hearing you. When you stand on stage, it is imperative that those little old ladies hear every word you say and understand them. That's your job. When you speak to somebody, whether it's another actor on stage or that little old lady in the balcony, the most important thing is to make them see. Communication is making someone else see what you see. If I talk about large trees with beautiful large yellow lemons, do you see them? You can't help but see them. Everything you say from the stage must be as visibly clear as that. I assign the popular essays in Gibran's The Prophet because they are concerned with the universal truths of marriage, children, giving, time, and joy and sorrow. If you study pieces written only in the vernacular, by their nature they don't readily move from your head to your heart. The essay should open up your relationship to an idea, for the actor must be personally involved with the author's idea. It should carry the actor's interpretation. Now, when you've absorbed and learned some of Gibran's ideas, first you must make sure they're simple and clear enough that everybody, no matter how ignorant they are, understands what you're saying. The theater is not just for smart people. Your job is not to show us how clever and sophisticated you are, how you can use literary words. You have to understand his ideas as clearly and completely as if they were your own. And they have to matter to you as much as if they were your own, for you to feel the importance of communicating them to others. I must feel the urgency of what you have to say. The need you feel to make the audience actually see what you've seen will push your voice forward. Get used to the idea that you're not doing it as a student. You're doing it as an actor. If you were just a student, you could do it in your own dull street voice, looking at your feet. But as with everything you do on stage, now you must make it vital. You become important as the idea enters into you. It's best not to pronounce the idea, but rather convey it, so it's understandable to the audience. For that, the most serviceable vocabulary is the one close to what you do and who you are. The essay should open up your relationship to an idea. Gibran, for example, says, "When you meet your friend on the roadside or in the marketplace, let the voice within your voice speak to the ear of his ear, for his soul will keep the truth of your heart as the taste of the wine is remembered when the color is forgotten and the vessel is no more." How can we communicate that simply and directly? Here's one way. When you speak to a friend, say only what really matters to you, and he won't forget it. After you have explained the idea, give your response to it. The essay has opened up your relationship to an idea, which is what we aim for. You also must make us understand that these ideas are universal. If Gibran talks about pain, we have to sense the pain he's describing as not someplace over there in another time. That pain is in you now. And it's not just a minor headache, it's a migraine. It may be the pain of Vietnam or the pain of Bangladesh. It might be the pain of someone's death. It is a pain that manifested itself in man for millions of years that throbs inside you. Now, I don't expect you to be able to do this just like that. You will fail. That's great. Here's a secret for you. That's the only way you can learn. Learning has to cost you something. If you fail but learn something from your failure, you will grow. I've been talking over and over again about size. You don't achieve stature unless you fail. You will only fail to learn if you do not learn from failing. Falling flat on your face will uplift you. I would be very happy if in 6 months you came to me and said, "Miss Adler, I want to do the Gibran exercise again." Now I really understand what it was about. The fact that we start with Gibran doesn't mean it's trivial or that the exercise is easy. Far from it. It has the seeds of everything else we'll study. Who would like to be first? All right, Robert, that's very brave. Robert, Gibran says of marriage, "Stella, it's very nice of you to give the author credit, but when you stand on stage, you represent him. When you say to be or not to be, you don't preface it by telling us Shakespeare says to be or not to be. You just say the line. Do the same with Gibran." Robert, marriage binds two people forever, but there should be spaces in their togetherness. Stella, that was clear, but let's have more of you. I need to have your reaction to his concept of the relationship. You have a lot of questions to answer in paraphrasing what he says. When marriage is entered into, do you think it should be automatically forever? Do you approve Gibran's idea that marriage partners should not interfere with each other's personal freedom? Every major idea begs for a reaction and interpretation. Who wants to be next? Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, time is the most precious thing we have. Before I read Gibran's essay, I was constantly looking at my watch and wasting my time that way. After reading the essay, I learned to enjoy time. Stella, very good, Jennifer, but what do you really mean when you say you enjoy time? Jennifer, well, I appreciate things more when I am on my way somewhere. I don't rush the cab driver. I no longer rush the reading. I live for today, and I live it more fully. Stella, very good, darling. Jennifer has taken what Gibran wrote and reacted to the idea. This is what we should do with the ideas of the playwrights. Our job is to experience and interpret them. Gibran's essay opened up Jennifer's relationship to an idea, which is what is needed on the stage. Ultimately, we do not want the author himself on the stage. We need you, the actor, plus the author, so that the idea filters through the living performance. Do you see that all that is required of you all that these exercises are about is to give you growth. You've got to grow up in order to be an actor. You've got to be a man to play John Gabriel Borkman or Richard III. You've got to be a man that knows a lot. However, you cannot play Hedda Tesman or Shaw's Joan of Arc if all you know comes from the suburbs. You can't go on stage unless you're filled with things that give you life all day long and problems all day long. That's what develops you. For the next lesson, I want to give you growth. You've got to grow up in order to be an actor. You've got to be a man to play